All right, shout out to the fam. Appreciate y'all for being in this live. Much love to the Who Dat Nation, the great Saint Think Tank. Big Q in the building, man. Much love to the fam. Shout out to FanDuel is the sponsor of the Sports Coma for all your betting services. I think the Patriots, they got the spread for this upcoming Super Bowl, so get your bets in on that. NBA, MMA, whatever the case may be in sports, check out FanDuel, man. They're the top in the game. So anyway, with that being said, in this episode of the show, we're going to do some reaction from Mickey Loomis. This is from Todd McShay, at the Senior Bowl in Mobile several days ago. Him kind of asking Mickey Loomis and kind of delving into Mickey's mind about the current situation dealing with the black and gold. So y'all hit the like button as we get going. Here we go.
The intricacies of the scouting process. When's the first report? Like if you went into the Saints system right now and look back, like how many years, when was the first report, and kind of walk us through how that escalates as you get closer to the draft?
Yeah, that's, I'm probably not going to be as precise, but it's probably 3 years ago.
Right.
Because obviously they're eligible after, 3 years out from high school, and, Tyler started at Oregon and so we're familiar with him there, familiar with him at Texas Tech, and then obviously his last year at Louisville, but probably about three years ago. And I remember talking about Tyler a year before, 2 years ago, and one of our scouts said, "Hey, this guy's going to be under the radar because he's been hurt."
Yep.
This was before he went to Louisville, so he hadn't had a long string of starts and success without being injured, and so that one of our scouts kind of felt like, hey, we might get a steal here.
Yep.
As an undrafted free agent or late pick.
Right.
And then he went to Louisville, had a great season, and obviously climbed up the draft boards, and we were fortunate to get him.
I'm curious.
All right, so Mickey Loomis is kind of saying that this is the first time I've heard Mickey mention that they were looking at Tyler Shuck prior to his time at Louisville. And it's not out of the realm of possibility that he could have been scouting for quarterbacks or whatnot. We've known, during that time frame when Dennis Allen was here, is that Dennis Allen kind of laid that Derek Carr was going to be the guy that lead the team into the future. And once he was done, Jay Kaner would then precede him as the follow-up. So, that's kind of interesting. I personally haven't heard Mickey Loomis mention them scouting Shuck beyond prior to the draft. Right. So it's not beyond this.
Too. So you hire a head coach who played the quarterback position, who's coached quarterback specifically, offensive coordinator. How the collaboration process, right? Because at the end of the day, it's your decision, and you have a scouting staff that you rely on and trust that you've put in those individuals in place, and you believe in your process. How does the collaboration work? Because you don't want to draft a quarterback, especially that maybe the new coach is not in line with, but you also want to make sure you stay true to your process. How does that work for fans that are kind of curious the behind the scenes?
Well, I think every place is a little different. I would say this is that I would never bring a player in that our coaching staff didn't want. So we're going to work out any disagreements or any little things that might bother them or bother us. We're going to get that worked out long before we make a pick. It was true with Jim Haslett when I started. He was our head coach. Sean Payton was our head coach for a long time. Dennis Allen. It's been the same process for us always. I believe in getting our coaches involved. I believe in getting their opinions. We want our coaching staff to have skin in the game for any player that we bring in, because we're going to rely on our coaching staff to develop those players. And so, if they've got an investment in time and a positive opinion, then I think that's going to benefit us in the long run.
When did you know that Chuck was the pick? And did you feel any pressure that you were going to have to go up and get him, or he wasn't going to be there?
Well, you always feel pressure, to go get someone. And look, I've got a history. Our team has a history of moving up and very seldom.
You're not afraid of being aggressive.
Yeah. No, because I just feel like, why would I want to go back and get a lesser player if you believe in your board, right? Mm-hmm. That's the principle behind that. But I do understand, moving back and collecting more picks and taking more shots. So I understand that process. But for us, it's always been, man, we fall in love with somebody and we're going to go get them. Make sure we get them. That was just a matter of, you make these assessments of whether he's going to be available, because you want value for the pick too.
Right.
You
Yeah.
definitely want the player, but you also want to manage your draft and use your assets accordingly. And so yes, there was pressure because we all liked him. And so we had to wait a while.
Yeah, I mean,
pick
if you-
44, is that what it was? Second round, yeah.
If you move up,
Um,
maybe you don't get a Quincy Riley later on. I mean,
Right.
That's the thing, right?
Right, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
40, excuse me.
Yeah.
Sorry, that
It
guy-
must have
my
been a
guy
long.
Doug here.
It must have been a long wait.
Yeah, it was a wait, and look, we had some guys in our room that they were kind of, maybe we should go up and get them, and
I bet.
there was some discussion about whether that made sense for us, and
How much do you look at the
we
board
did.
too? Like,
All right, so listen, and of course we covered all of this as it was going on with the Saints during the draft process. It wasn't always Tyler Shuck. Now listen, they were interested in Tyler Shuck, but it's never just one guy because you never could be certain if he'll be available. But the listing was Jackson Dart. The Saints were really interested in Jackson Dart. It was just the fact that the New York Giants picked him a lot earlier than what people anticipated where he was going to go. A lot of people didn't think he would go inside of the top 10. A lot of people thought he would fall outside of the top 10. But the Saints were really interested in Jackson Dart. They really were. And like I said, it's not, beyond conclusion that you might have one or two guys that you like that's in there, but that's the purpose of having the big board. If you have the big board and guys who you won't, some guy jumps ahead of you, and you have to have a plan B, plan C, plan D, plan, all the way down, all the way down. You just can't just bite on one potential player and go for him. And that was the field. They were looking at Shuck during the draft process because I remember the scouts going in on him and people are talking about him, the rumor mill circulating. But from my recollection and my research, they were really interested in Jackson Dart. The Giants really surprised a lot of people by taking him that high. And outside of that, the Saints had a fantastic draft class, this past draft class. The problem is they don't do this consistently. Like the last time the Saints had a really fine draft class was some time ago. And that's something that needs to really change because the team, I think, would be in a lot better straits talent-wise, especially to our offensive line, if we were hitting on some of these picks. Like, for instance, the Trevor Penning pick was hideous. Trevor Penning didn't fit well. Now he was traded. He was a bust. We had several, and we're just talking exclusively to the top of the draft, right? And there were players like Penning. There was players like Davenport. There were players like Peyton Turner. There were players several players during those draft cycles that weren't contributors to the team. They were not good drafts. And we had way too many not good drafts, and we don't have a collection of players coming out of the drafts that we were getting that would really help in the team. Guys were not playing well. Even if you talk about Cesar Ruiz and when he came out and what he did, Cesar Ruiz was drafted to be a center. He made the crossover to playing a guard. He hadn't really improved since he's been playing the guard position. He gets beat thoroughly. He's not as consistent as he's supposed to be. But we've had, from a historical standpoint, as of recent, outside of last year's draft, we've had way too many drafts where we missed on a lot of key talent that didn't help the team over a long period of time, right? It's kind of hitting us here, man, as we move forward. But anyway, let's get back into
these teams don't need a quarterback.
Yeah, you're paying attention to that,
Right.
and now with technology, we have all these mock draft simulators, and
Yep.
we run through 150 of those. You can run them just like this, and so we run 150 or 200 scenarios, and there's only like one or two where he's taken in front of our pick, and so
There's always a snake
that
in the weeds.
influence,
Yeah,
that
that's what
influences you.
scares you, though.
But here's the deal, GMs are not simulators,
Right,
you know?
right.
And a lot of them are really good at keeping their decisions close to the vest. So. That work out.
It's like
Then
me.
organizationally, right? But
I'm
we've
not a
seen
robot.
so many different ways to
I am a whole lot now. I'm not a robot. I'm a real flesh live being. Look at my coat.
make it work. And Shuck isn't a top 15 pick, like a Mahomes or a Josh Allen or a Drake May. But how?
Well,
you bring him
I think if you remember right, when Mahomes got taken, I don't think that a lot of people had him in the top 15.
no.
He was going to be farther down the line, probably closer to the 20s. And Kansas City had a conviction,
Yep.
traded up in front of.
Hey,
I
y'all.
think Arizona was who they thought was going to take him, traded in front of us.
I thought that was the story that Sean Payton talked about with Patrick Mahomes, that they were interested in Patrick Mahomes and were supposed to make a move to get Mahomes. And then Andy Reid and them picked up on it, kind of got ahead of them and went and grabbed Mahomes. This happens in drafts exclusively at the quarterback position. There is not it's not a more reachable position than the QB position. People reach for QBs and fail all the time with quarterbacks. We've seen that happen all the time. Now I'm saying this, issue with Drake May because it depends too. If you take a quarterback, you got to be able to put him in a system and have the coach to be able to be a people person, a sociable enough to be able to communicate the game and what he wants to do to a quarterback. It's like if you go to a team that's ran by a defensive coordinator and his temperament is not that he doesn't have the offensive staff to be able to understand sociably what you need the quarterback to do, and not only that, but to gravitate and build a game plan around said quarterback, then you'll see basically a high turnover rate for that position from teams. And you can see it all the time. To some of the more poorest teams in the NFL, they have an issue at the quarterback position. It's as simple as that. And a lot of times, a lot of quarterbacks come into the league. They have the talent, they have the athleticism, they have the IQ, they have all of the stuff necessarily needed to be successful, but they don't have an offensive line. They don't have the proper skill set. They don't have you see what I'm saying? And you can put a player somewhere where they have the talent, then all of a sudden they fall apart, and then it doesn't work. Like, for instance, you see it's an environment, like even with a guy like Sam Darnold, he failed miserably with the Jets. Everybody failed with the Jets. Everybody, Fields just failed with everybody fails with the Jets because the Jets are not constructed to be favorable to have a quarterback there they can build a competent system around, right? You see what I'm saying? And now you look at what the Saints have done. All of the top decision makers with the Saints are former quarterbacks. That's crazy work. So it's what it is a line of thinking. Okay, you got a head coach that used to be a quarterback, whether he's in the professional ranks of college. You had the head coach was a former quarterback. The offensive lineman, offensive coordinator, was a former quarterback. And the QB coach, of course, he was a former quarterback. So you got three guys that are in the quarterback's room. They all were quarterbacks, understand what it takes to be a quarterback at some level. That means something. If you go other places, that might not be the case. So with teams with a lot of success not happening, a lot of time they don't have solidarity at one of the most important, if the most important position in football, at the QB position.
And they took Pat.
Right. So, but then you bring in Tyler as the 40th overall pick, and organizationally, it's so important then to support him properly and make sure you don't throw him into the fire too early. But he's not the youngest prospect to come out. What were those conversations like after you draft him, knowing your situation with you and Kellen, talking about how are we going to support him best?
Yeah, well, I think in a perfect world, you take a young quarterback and you let him get acclimated and you let him sit and follow somebody else and develop. I think history's shown that's been the best method. I mean, a lot of these guys that have had a lot of success, Tom Brady sat for a year. Aaron Rodgers sat for 3 years.
Right. Patrick sat for a year.
Patrick sat for a year. A lot of them sat for a good amount of time. And on occasion, there's a guy or two that start early and have some success early. But history shows that it's just better to get acclimated and understand the league, be able to take a deep breath. There's a lot of pressure on these guys at that position, and so in a perfect world, we wanted to give him time to do that. Now, Derek Carr retired, so we were in a little bit different circumstance, but we had Spencer, like a lot of things that Spencer did, so we had the luxury of kind of letting that play out in training camp, and we went with Spencer. And look, he did a lot of really good things. So, but it got to the point where, okay, let's see what Tyler can do. And he's an older quarterback with a lot of starts in college, a lot of play, and so a lot of maturity. So it's a little bit different circumstance with him because of the amount of time he spent in college, and it worked out. He had a great run of the last 9 games, but I think that not starting at the beginning of the season was really valuable for him.
Last one for me.
Yeah, indeed, and we talked about this during the time that this was happening, that obviously Spencer Rattler would have been the better option to go with, because if it's like a poison pill, right? If you put Tyler Shuck in there, and a lot of those games early on were very difficult matchups, the Saints had not. The Saints, if everything lined up, you might have had the type of success on the back end if guys were blocking correctly. Like there was still a disconnect on what guys were supposed to do. You had offensive linemen that wasn't blocking correctly. They were still missing blocks. You had the running game wasn't effective. It was garbage. You had guys, established wide receivers and tight ends dropping the touchdown passes, dropping third down balls, disconnect issues, guys not being what he's supposed to do. You got to out route the guy going inside with it. Constant communication issues and confusion on route concepts that were going on all up the first 2 months of the season. That was going on. Tyler Spencer Rattler running out of the pocket, him getting sacked, check down Charlie, not forcing the ball up the field, and this sort of thought. So we deal with the east-west conundrum of too many east to west passes, not attacking vertically, and all of that went on for the first at least 2 months of the season, right? And it's just official. But if you put Tyler Shuck in that, and you have all of those issues where this, that, and the third, and they're losing games, like Spencer Rattler was losing games, and he was like one win and all these different times, and he couldn't pick up a win, all this kind of stuff. That you couldn't win the season. Listen, the pressure is. I'm gonna put it to you like this: the pressure on Tyler Shuck at that time would have been too much, right? Because they would have been demanding to go to Spencer Rattler. Remember, there was a large contingent of Who Dat Nation family members that were riding real hard with Spencer Rattler. If Tyler Shuck gets out there, gets to call struggles, is out there throwing 2 and 3 interceptions, getting knocked around, all this kind of stuff, in those early games, like you seen Spencer Rattler, he would be dealing with the same stuff. Then you would be calling for him to be replaced by Spencer Rattler in the second half of the season. So the Saints did historically and factually what they were supposed to do. When it was close, they went with the more experienced guys. So if the most experienced guy struggles, you can pivot to Tyler Shuck as opposed to the vice versa. You couldn't do it the opposite way around. If people been calling for Tyler Shuck to be removed for Spencer Rattler, that would have been a whole different set of circumstances, period. And then, of course, the pressure was the fact that the Saints picked a guy that was 26 years of age, right? An older quarterback, right? That was in college for 7 years, who has an injury history and all this kind of stuff. And people were like, we knew he could throw the ball. I was watching a film on Tyler Shuck. We knew he had a strong arm. I knew he was athletic. We seen that on tape. You seen that. That wasn't the issue. The issue was his age and his very murky injury history. That was the issue at the time, right? So, and like I said, I say all that to say that they made the correct decision insofar as putting Spencer first and having him play and having Tyler Shuck to learn on the scout team. And then later on in the year, guys started playing better. Like guys got hurt, offensive linemen got hurt. Then you see backups come in and play better than the starters that they were replacing. You start seeing drop passes that started to be caught in the second half of the season. You start seeing guys pick up blocks. You start seeing guys running the football better. The football overall started to improve in the second half of the season, and Tyler Shuck was a part of that progression. And that you started seeing that started turning up and all this kind of stuff. Early on, you had guys like Blake Grupe missing field goals. He got his ass out of here. Then you had Charlie Smith in there kicking field goals and lighting things up. You see what I'm saying? So you've seen a lot of things, the light go on as a collective in the second half of the season, because all of the dozens of practices finally, people started to get what they needed to do and started playing better. Juwan Johnson didn't play that well in the first half of the season. In the second half of the season, he turned it on. Chris Olave wasn't playing that well in the first half of the season. In the second half of the season, he turned it on. Vele was buried on the depth chart because of Rashid Shaheed and Brandon Cooks. They traded Rashid Shaheed, waived Brandon Cooks, and then that opened up a spot for Vele. So the offense started to look different because guys started finding roles, and then you start seeing things took on. So a lot of the errors that happened in the first half of the season were worked away or ironed out to a degree for the second half of the season, and Tyler Shuck and Cole benefited from that.
Shuck. So I've done a lot of research in the last several years on when you get your quarterback, which is the hardest thing to do in this league, right? And so now you feel like you've got your guy. What do organizations do that have been successful the next year in the draft specifically? A lot of times we've seen the shift to, you would think, right? Like, all right, let's get him a running back. Let's get some wide receivers, But a lot of organizations that have had success, and it surprised me when I did the study, they kind of went heavy defense the next draft. I'm not looking for you to give me answers on what you guys are going to do. I'm just saying, have you kind of looked at what's the best way to support them and what's our approach, or is it just stay true to our board and
Yeah.
you know?
Well, let me give you a long answer for that one.
Okay.
So,
Uh-oh.
I was hired in 1983 by Seattle Seahawks.
1883?
Our general manager was Mike McCormick.
You was hired in 1883, Mickey. Hold on now. I'm 100 years old, and goddamn it, I've been. If you was hired in 1883, Mickey, you older than the league itself.
I was hired in 1983.
Did he say 19 or 18? Let me put the closed caption on here. Did Mickey say 18? I would catch this shit. I would catch it. Did he say 1883?
And
Yeah.
you know,
Well, let me give you a long answer for that one.
Okay.
So, I was hired in 1983 by Seattle Seahawks.
Okay, 1983. My bad, Mickey. Go on. Hold on now, goddammit. I'm not a
Our
bad
general manager was Mike McCormick. Mike McCormick later became the president of the Carolina Panthers as an expansion team. But before he was the general manager of the Seahawks, he was a head coach of the Baltimore Colts.
Okay.
And before that, he was the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. And before that, he was a offensive tackle for the Cleveland Browns. And in 1984, he was elected to the Hall of Fame as a tackle. A great player. So I say that because that's who I learned a lot about this game and about rosters and how to build a game and how to build a team and what can be successful. It comes from him. It comes from an offensive lineman.
Yep.
So you know what I'm going to say next, right? So
he's an offensive
he
lineman,
would say the most important position on any team is a quarterback. We all would agree with that.
Yep.
But he would say the most important room is the offensive lineman, because if they can't function at a high level, then it doesn't matter how good your quarterback is, because he won't be able to function. And I think the culture of most teams begins with the offensive line, because they've got to be smart, they've got to be tough, they've got to be selfless, great teammates, see something, say something type of guys.
Yep.
And so that's why you'll see, if in the history of our organization, since I've been the GM, we've drafted a lot of offensive linemen high. It's important to get that room right, and we're building that room right. We've got first round picks at left tackle and right tackle the last 2 years. We've got a center that was a second round pick and a right guard that was a first round pick. And look, we've had some other guys, some worked out, some didn't. But we've got to get that room right to begin with, and that way Tyler can develop. He can take time. Young quarterbacks are going to take too many sacks. They're going to hold on to it too long. They're no different than that.
Yeah.
But you know what that means? That means you offensive linemen have to hold your blocks a little bit longer. You got to, because you got a young quarterback back here. He's, and so we got to get that room right. We got to play well there, and then we've got to be able to have a run game, and then obviously have a good defense. And we played good defense last year. I thought our coaches did a great job. Particularly after Chase Young came back, week 5, we had a really good defense from that point on. And so we got to build on that as well.
At the
Offensive line is the key point right here for Mickey Loomis. Shout out to Mickey right here. No understanding that we have to get the offensive line right. He's saying that like they understand, like there's a hole at the left guard position. You got to get that right? You got Tyler Shuck. He's the franchise guy. They do have a bunch of draft picks in this draft. A lot of offensive linemen are available in this draft, but a lot of these guard types, I wouldn't pick them in the first round. I would look for those guys in the second round, right? But the reality is, if you look at free agency, the Saints have an opportunity with the money they can be able to use. They can be able to actually go after and kind of solve a major issue with the offensive line, understanding that, hey man, right now with the league, what happened with the league's money going up, we pivot. Well, guess what? The Saints sitting at look at these savings right here. With the money changing and going up, the Saints now are just $6 million in the red. So you'll have multiple restructures that catapult the Saints north of $30 million on this season. So we're looking at that. We understand that they can actually go into free agency and be a player like in free agency and get a top-notch offensive line guard in the NFL free agency period. Maybe two guys, one that could start at the left guard position, one that could compete with Cesar Ruiz at the right guard position, and re-signing to Luke Fortner to back up McCoy. Those are good moves. You still have Akeem Richards, you still have Xavier Truss, you still have several other Saints players that have been. Nick Saldiveri, we don't know what he's going to do. Torrey Simpkins is interesting as well. So a couple of signings there. And drafting's there could elevate that spot and it really help out. To be honest with you,
This is making Todd angry because he said just yesterday he's done talking about this, but it's been a big subject, especially with the tackles last year. Arm length, 34-inch arms. Everyone's supposed to have 34-inch arms to play tackle. You've had success drafting guys with shorter arms. I mean, Ryan Ramczyk was one of my favorite prospects coming out of college. Kelvin Banks last year does, sub 34-inch arms. We talk about it in the way of, does it show up on tape? Are there certain numbers or measurables, like specifically, I guess, with the offensive tackles that you look at and say, this is something we need to dig into, or you're tape-based, character-based?
Well, look, the thing about measurables, and not just measurables, but all the drill work, all the things that we time and test, they're important because we know that there's a range that 95% of our league is going to fall within, right? At any position. And, I tell our guys all the time, we're not looking for exceptions, because if we keep finding exceptions, we're eventually going to get fired, because there are exceptions for a reason. So we're not looking for exceptions. And yet you got to look at the whole body of work. And hey, a really good player is a really good player. And I would say that we're not looking for exceptions, that we want to have guys with 35-inch arms and perfect measurables, but they don't all have that. And another factor is, hey, what's the scheme that you're running? And sometimes the athleticism is more important than the arm length. Sometimes the acid mass is more important than the speed, or whatever it is that you're measuring. So I would say that those guys fit all the measurables except that one in those cases.
Yes, I would agree. Is there one other one I can ask you about? Is the history of the Saints drafting running backs?
Yeah.
And that's another thing you hear. You don't draft running backs early. I don't think you were the GM yet, but you were part of the organization when the Saints drafted Deuce McAllister in the first round.
Yeah, that was Randy Mueller was a GM. I worked for Randy. Randy and I were there together. We had Ricky Williams at the time, and just that was that specifically was Deuce was a player that we had ranked in the top 5 players in the draft that year. Yeah. And we're picking 21, I think it was, maybe 22, right in that vicinity. And I was like, we just can't pass this guy up. Yeah. I know we got Ricky Williams, but we can't pass this guy up. And so Randy made that decision, and it was a good one. I mean, Deuce Deuce is a good friend of mine now, and my son actually played basketball together at the high school.
That's great.
That they go to. But he was a big, fast. He's a punt returner the first year, for crying out loud, at his size. And I think as I recall, he led the league in 20+ yard runs for the first few years of his career. And then he had a knee injury, and his career was cut short by some injuries. But great back. We drafted Mark Ingram for first round, and that was a good pick for us. Alvin, we were lucky enough to get in the 3rd round. So
early 3rd, though. We still, I think people look at it and say 3rd. It was, I think, the 3rd pick of the 3rd round.
Yeah, the guy that we liked a lot, and Sean fell in love with Alvin as
for good reason.
Yeah, he fell in love with him when he went and Sean went to his. I think we had a private workout with a bunch of guys from Tennessee that year, and Sean came back in love with Alvin because of his brain, because of how smart he was, and the things that he could do. So, but yeah, we haven't. Offensive lineman, we've had a lot in the first round. Running back, not so much.
You're gonna move this closer.
Yeah, Deuce McAllister, man. A lot of people forget Deuce to a degree prior to that knee injury. Deuce McAllister was phenomenal. He was special. Coming from Ole Miss, he was returning punts. He was a running back, but he kind of reminded me of like a little heavier version of Eric Dickerson. His game was like he was phenomenal, but he had that Eric Dickerson type game, a little bit heavier, but he could catch, run, real smart, fast, and run inside, outside, catch the ball. He was a phenomenal player. Then we had that knee issue. Deuce kind of gained weight and became an inside tackle runner and had success there. But, man, let me tell you something, man. Prior to the injury, Deuce McAllister was phenomenal. If he had never had that injury, he'd be the best running back the Saints ever had. In terms of yards, they wouldn't be able to catch what he would have put up running and catching for the team. But nonetheless, shout out to Alvin and Ingram. Those were terrific. Ingram took a while to get going, right? But then later on, like third or fourth year, he started to pick up on it. He was frustrating me at first, early on. He wasn't the same guy, but Sean Payton really challenged him later on, and he became something special, especially with him, and he paired him with Alvin Kamara.
So we have a coaches convention that just broke out in the middle of this. I'm curious, because you've been doing this for a minute, and you've had a lot of success. I actually tried. I reached out to some people who've worked for you, and I was trying to dig up some dirt and some things that, but
There's some out there, I'm sure.
But
Hold on,
honestly, everyone just
don't talk
thoroughly
to that
looks
big
back
Q
on their
guy.
time working with you and really appreciates how you've done it.
Hold on now.
I'm curious this with technology and the game changing and everything that's gone on. When you look back to where you were when you first got was the championship 2002, I think.
Yes.
Okay. To where we are now in 2026, how have you evolved?
Oh, good question. I don't know. I can't answer that. I'm sure there's a group of people who say I haven't evolved.
No, you got better, Mickey.
It's a good question.
Just don't be so damn arrogant all the time.
We have a lot more data available to us, so we try to take advantage of that. But it's always just a tool in the toolbox. I say, look, we have really good evaluators in our building. You have really great coaches in the league, and so we got to trust what these people are expert at. And yet, the data that's available to us can either confirm or contradict, what our eyes see. And so, if it confirms it, great. And if it contradicts it, well, let's dig a little deeper. And that's the way we treat it. So I'd say that's one of the areas that has changed. I still think it's blocking, it's tackling, it's fundamental stuff. And look, I think it's harder for college coaches now to coach because the transfer portals and the things that these players have to go through now at the college level. So we probably need to spend more time on some of the fundamental things that we believe in, because the game's a little different when it gets to the NFL as opposed to college game. And look, I think college coaches do a great job. So this isn't anything against any of that. It's just, our game's a little different. And so we have to spend a little more time recognizing, and it's different for every player, right? Yeah. What can they do? What do they do well? What are we going to ask them to do, and how can we get them to do it better? Yeah, but that doesn't answer your question.
No, it does. Because I think,
man, Mickey Loomis has improved as a GM, right? It's still a thought process, and I buy into it, that I still like him more as a VP than a general manager. Mickey doesn't make all these calls. He gets conferenced it with all of the other former general managers that he's hired. His assistant general manager behaves like an actual manager and does it. And I think Mickey gets the credit for a lot of stuff, but Kai Hartley does a lot of contracts. He's the one that also involves. So Jeff Ireland is doing the scouting and stuff like that. But there are other general managers like Dimitrioff that are here that act as like help or assistants to a degree to Mickey Loomis. So his job is, he got 2 or 3 guys contributing to what he does, and he gets the general manager. He's overall the guy that goes to the coach, say, hey, is this what you want? And then he green stamps it. So me personally, I would like to see him stay the VP, but let somebody else, in particular Kai Hartley, become the new general manager, because that allows us to see have another person there, a younger person there that can take this team with Tyler Shuck and the Saint team into the future. I think Mickey Loomis has done what he can do at the position. I would like to prefer to have somebody at the general manager. He can still keep the VP position, but I still would advocate for somebody else inside of the building, preferably Kai Hartley, to be the new GM, man, just to kind of have a fresh, more contemporary view of what's going on in today's NFL.
I think sometimes with all that change, some people can get away from their roots and get away from, like, at the end of the day, what's important. And I think it's important to have a firm anchor with what you believe in and what you do, while still utilizing what's coming along. There's only 32 of you in the world. It fascinates me, right? And how hard it is. Like, you look around the Senior Bowl, or we get to the Combine, and how many scouts, how many coaches, how many people that are aspiring to be in this seat that you're in. Yeah. And there's
he does a good job to keep him out of that too.
If you were to look back and talk to your younger self, 20, 25 years old, right? Yeah. And give yourself some advice now that you've been through all these wars, what would you tell that young man?
Well, let me go the other direction first. Okay. So, hey, when I'm 12 years old, I think I'm going to be a wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, right? When I'm 16 years old, I think that I'm going to be the shortstop for the San Francisco Giants. Yeah. And then when I'm 20, I think I'm going to be a point guard in the NBA. So, and then when I'm 22, I recognize that I'm not going to do any of that. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a basketball coach and an AD at a small college. That was what I intended on doing.
What? Mickey Loomis as a basketball coach or athletic director? Mickey Loomis? That's interesting.
And so I say that because my 12-year-old self, my 16-year-old self, my 20-year-old self would all look at me today and say, you're a miserable failure. You ruined our life.
Right.
So, look, I've been fortunate. I've been in the league 41 years. Yes, you aspire to become a GM when you're an executive in our league, but it's a lot of luck. You got to be in the right place at the right time. Things have to happen for you to get one of these jobs because, as you said, there's so few of them. And I love doing it because I love the people.
You do?
The work's great, but I just love the people that are in the NFL. They're high achievers. They're smart. They're great people, great teammates.
People in the
scouts,
NFL. Okay.
Everyone's passionate about their job in our league. That's it's a great thing about it. We choose to do this. I didn't choose to be here because I thought I was going to make a bunch of money. In fact, I thought I can make a lot more money doing lots of other things. I'm a pretty smart guy. And yet, we make a good living now. If you get to be a GM, you're going to make a really good living. And a lot of these positions in our league now because of the growth of the league. When I started, there was 40 guys in the whole office. Right now, we've got 300. So it's crazy. And we've got in our situation, we've got a basketball team as well. So that's the magnitude of everything has changed dramatically. But it's still part of I wanted to be involved in team sports because I love the competition. I love having a result on after game day, and I can say, look, we won or lost, and you're going to feel really low, as you guys know. You feel really low when you lose, but you're not going to feel high with the wins if you don't have the lows, and so that's fine. It's part of the deal, and gets your blood going and keeps me going. I'm 69 years old, and man, I have energy, and I'm excited about going to work every day still. So I didn't answer your question, did I?
No, you didn't, Mickey. You're getting old, bro.
Two more,
Sorry.
okay, and then we'll let you go. I know we got a busy day here.
Old Mickey.
For whatever reason, people are really intrigued, because we have 400 players that we wind up whittling it down to from 1,300, throughout the process. I'm told, and maybe I'm wrong, I'm told your board at the end of the day, when we get there for draft weekend, your board is maybe a little bit smaller, more condensed than some other teams. Is that true? How big is your board typically, and what's the process behind that?
Yeah, it's a lot less than, 276 picks? How many picks are there? 276?
250, I think 250,
yeah, supplemental and all that,
Yeah, so we have a lot less than that on our board. And Jeff Ireland, who's our college scouting director, this is a lot of his system as well as a blend of what we believed before he got there and what we've collaborated on since. He's got a formula that you got to have this many people on your board in the first round. You have to have this. You have to have this many for your next pick.
Yep.
And the formula's never failed, but it gets a little nerve-wracking.
I was going to say, did you ever look at it and say, what happened?
We've been in later in the draft at times, and there's only 2 or 3 names up there that it's a little nerve-wracking, but they've always been available. So because we're trying to get it down. These are the guys that we want, and the rest of it just kind of becomes clutter. Not clutter. That's not the right word, but you get the gist of what I'm saying.
Well, these are the guys. Right?
These are the guys that fit what we want to do. They fit the profile of what we want to bring into the locker room, and these are the guys we want. And that's why we trade up, not back. Generally speaking,
right?
Yeah.
All right, last one.
Yeah.
And
hold on now.
we've had Eric DeCosta, Howie Roseman, Nick Casario, all wonderful. The time we spent with them was wonderful. But they absolutely have failed us to this point. And I'm hoping that you know. You're in New Orleans,
Those
right?
guys are all really top flight GMs
wonderful,
too. So.
But they failed us in this area.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten a great story about the spread for draft weekend. And you're in New Orleans. You have an appreciation. We talked about Koshan before you came on.
Yeah.
The butcher we just went to the other day was amazing. I think you have an appreciation for good food. What's the spread? Who's in charge of it? What's it look like? How important is that to you? Because that would be it would be high on my, that's why I'm not a general manager, but that would be really high on my priority list.
Yeah, well, I see Jeff Ireland over here. He's kind of taken over responsibility for the spread at the draft.
Jeff, come over here.
Come on, Jeff.
Jeff, come on over.
But I would say this: the one thing that we have that's really unique is
we're talking about the spread for draft weekend, the food.
Catering,
yeah.
We generally have we'll have a sushi day.
Jeff Ireland, short as hell. Well, look at Mickey Loomis sitting down.
Who's doing that for us? Rock'n'Saki still? Yeah, Rock'n'Saki.
Shameless plug there.
And we'll have another shameless plug because we'll have Dragos for the oysters, charbroiled oysters. See?
Yeah, this is by far the best spread.
Yeah, and then we'll have just a variety of
Little Tex-Mex, of course. That's my background.
Yeah.
Tex-Mex.
Yep.
So
we're not wanting for
Get
calories because as you know, you guys know, there's a lot of sitting around during the draft.
Yes.
So what do you do?
Nervous eating.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of eating.
So you guys care. There's some thought is put into this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
See Howie, see Eric. See, Nick, like this is the answer I was looking for. I appreciate it. So we're going to get more time with you, but we're going to wrap up and let everyone get out to practice and meetings. So this has been wonderful.
Yeah,
really
great
appreciate
job. Thank you.
your time.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
You bet, guys.
Must be
All right, so there it is, man. That's the interview with Mickey Loomis, man, and with Todd McShay. A lot of good game in that interview, to be honest with you, man. Mickey kind of talked about his past, and it was really cool hearing, some of the influences of Mickey Loomis, because a lot of people listen to this interview. You hear the traditional stuff, but I think Todd McShay did a really good job in kind of getting Loomis to open up. He's a little bit more relaxed with McShay in this collegiate environment, and it was cool listening to him talk about his influences. I didn't know that about the offensive lineman. I knew that he had some influences in the NFL. Didn't recognize that he pulled a lot of that from that former offensive lineman that ended up in the Hall. I was not aware of Mickey Loomis and what he talked about, what he wanted to be as a 16, 17, 18-year-old, that he wanted to be a college basketball coach or a basketball coach and an athletic director. I did not know that about Mickey Loomis as well. So it's kind of interesting to see how he ended up being what he is and being with the Saints as long as he is. So we can give a lot of respect to that, man, to be honest with you, that he did a lot of positive stuff for the New Orleans Saints on his guard, getting some stuff, getting the first Super Bowl under his watch. But toward the back end, having the kind of fall off that we had in terms of the draft and needing to understand what happened, why we weren't able to draft as well as we need to, and ultimately getting back to drafting well and buying into the concept. It helps out when you have a quarterback that knows what he's doing. That's the future of the team. It makes everything so easy because now you could be about the business of building or filling out the offense around the most important position on the football team. We know we got the proper defensive coordinator. It appears that we won't lose a lot of assistants, if any, so we can keep the continuity for the Saints going. We've seemed like we found a kicker, and Charlie Smith will have to be able to then provide Kai Kroger some competition in special teams. Rufield Galliano has to step his game up as well. And that'll be a big part of it going forward. And the Saints, like I said, they're only $6 million in the red this time around. So when they start restructuring, man, they're going to get north of $30 million, depending on how much money Mickey Loomis wants to restructure. Of course, there is going to be on tap the Chris Olave contract extension. The re-signings of both Cam Jordan and Demario Davis is on tap. Not to mention guys like we talked about the center Luke Fortner, him getting a re-up deal, and several other veterans potentially getting deals in terms of bringing some of the guys back. We talked about guys like Jonah Williams, perhaps Jonathan Bullard, perhaps Chris Rump II, guys like that. Some of these guys earn an opportunity to come back, and perhaps the Saints, with this blessing of money because of only owing $6 million, perhaps the Saints felt like they could re-up with Alante Taylor. So things are possible when you have money. But once again, the focus of the Saints retaining Cam, DeMario, possibly Alante if he's not priced out, re-ing up with Chris Olave, that opened up more money. Because once we restructure or re-sign him, then that drops his cap, his annual cap money from 15 down to probably like less than $2 million. That's how Mickey or Kai will build the contract out. So that provides an additional amount of money on top of the restructured cap savings that the Saints going to get. So we're looking pretty good, man, with the quarterback and Tyler Shuck, the second round in the second year of his contract. Cheap money for the quarterback that we can be able to fill out and build around him. And with the proper signings in free agency and a correct drafting process, the Saints can have a quantum jump, perhaps similar, I ain't gonna say like the New England Patriots, because that's saying a lot, but perhaps in the NFC South, we can have a quantum leap from the bottom of the NFC South to the top of the NFC South and be able to kind of get back in the spot where we belong and move this thing in the correct direction. So we shall see. But anyway, that's all I got for you on this episode of the show. Y'all, please feel free to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. By all means, feel free to share the show on your social media feed. Big Q representing the mighty Who Dat Nation. Shout out to FanDuel, the official sponsor of the Coma. Speaking of the Super Bowl, that's coming up this weekend. The New England Patriots, I think they're 4.5 points, 4.5 point favorites in the matchup. So if y'all want to get your bets in on that, please feel free to go to FanDuel on the app. or to their site and get your bets in, whether it's the NBA, the NHL, MMA, whatever it is. FanDuel is the place to get your bet in. So y'all check them out. So with that being said, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Also, shout out to the fam. Y'all feel free to check out the comment section. The description section below, also the community section, and check out the new Shuck Y'all collection that is available right now. That's right. The Shuck Y'all collection is available. That means Shuck Norris, Shuck Berry, Shuck D, all those fantastic shirts and merch is available right now for the Shuck Y'all collection. Y'all check that out in the comment section, also in the community post. With that being said, man, I'm gonna get out of here. Much love, peace, and who that.
Hey, New Orleans! Whether you're catching up on Saints news at Jackson Square, checking Pelicans scores in the Garden District, or staying updated on LSU while grabbing coffee in the French Quarter, there's one place that keeps you connected to everything that matters in our city. From Bourbon Street to the Superdome, from Preservation Hall to the Riverfront, New Orleanians are staying in the know with the WhoDatDaily.com. Your daily source for Saints, Pelicans, LSU, and all the sports, music, and culture that makes our city special. At work downtown, at a game in the Dome, or just relaxing by the Mississippi, wherever life takes you in the Big Easy, you can stay connected. Because when you're from New Orleans, you don't just live here. You stay in the NO. That's stay in the know. Visit the WhoDatDaily.com and never miss what matters most to Who Dat Nation.
Welcome to the Pro Shop, where we create authentic NOLA-inspired clothing for men, women, and children. From Saints jerseys to Pelicans gear, everything's crafted right here in New Orleans. Whether you're shopping the Pro Shop, the Pel Shop, or the Pro Shop Kids, we've got your whole family covered with genuine merchandise that represents our city's spirit. Check for links in the description section below or in the chat.